Yesterday morning, the President of the United States ordered his Navy to shoot and kill any Iranian boat laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. No hesitation, he said. And in the same post, the same breath, he said America has total control of the Strait of Hormuz. No ship enters or leaves without the approval of the United States Navy. I spent decades inside the American defense establishment. I have sat in rooms where these decisions get made, where these assessments get written, where commanders brief presidents on what is actually happening versus what the public statement will say. And I want to tell you something from that experience directly and without diplomatic language. You do not issue a shoot on sight order for a body of water you already control. That order is not a demonstration of strength. That order is a confession. And what it confesses is what I'm going to spend the next 18 minutes walking you through carefully, because I think most people watching this conflict from the outside do not understand what is actually happening at sea right now, not because the information is classified, but because the official briefings are built around what is being accomplished and very carefully avoid dwelling on what is not. America destroyed Iran's Navy, 159 warships, at the bottom of the ocean, and Iran still controls the Strait of Hormuz. I want you to sit with that sentence for a moment before I explain it, because once you understand how that is possible, you will understand something about modern warfare, about asymmetric strategy, and about the limits of conventional military power that no press briefing will ever tell you directly. When this war began on February 28th, American and Israeli strikes began systematically dismantling Iran's conventional military infrastructure. The regular Navy was an early and important priority. Warships, frigates, corvettes, submarines, larger coastal patrol vessels. One by one, they were located, targeted, and destroyed. By early April, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs confirmed that more than 90% of Iran's regular Navy was gone. The American narrative settled quickly around that number. Iran's Navy is defeated. The sea lanes are ours. We control the water. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stood at a Pentagon podium and said with visible confidence, "We can do this all day." 3 weeks later, Iran seized 3 commercial ships in the strait in a single morning. Here is what the briefings do not explain. And I say this as someone who has participated in enough of those briefings to know exactly what gets emphasized and what gets quietly omitted. The 159 warships now on the ocean floor belong to Iran's conventional military, the Artesh, the regular armed forces of the Islamic Republic. But the vessels currently seizing container ships, laying GPS-guided mines in the shipping channel, and forcing 3 American carrier strike groups to operate from the Gulf of Oman rather than inside the strait itself, those do not belong to Iran's regular Navy. They never did. They belong to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy, a completely separate institution, a completely separate chain of command, built around a completely different philosophy of what naval power actually means and how it should be used. The IRGC Navy was not designed to fight America's Navy on America's terms. It was designed from its inception to make America's Navy irrelevant in the specific geography of the Strait of Hormuz. And the instrument it uses to achieve that is what military analysts have been calling in defense circles for years, the mosquito fleet. Not a metaphor, a doctrine built, refined, and practiced over 4 decades of strategic planning for exactly this confrontation. Let me describe this force precisely, because the gap between how it is publicly discussed and what it actually represents operationally is significant and matters enormously for understanding what is happening right now. The Mosquito fleet consists of thousands of small, fast attack boats, vessels capable of reaching speeds between 50 and 70 knots. That translates to roughly 90 to 130 kilometers per hour on water. Armed with rockets, guided and unguided missiles, heavy machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and increasingly kamikaze drones launched directly from the deck. Some of these vessels are barely larger than what you would see at a marina on an ordinary weekend. Some of them, carved-out jet skis converted into suicide weapons, are stored in garages and tunnels cut directly into the rock face of Iran's coastline, invisible from satellite imagery until the moment they launch. There is no naval base to bomb. There is no fleet anchorage to strike. The Mosquito fleet does not live in a port. It lives inside the geography of Iran's coastline itself. And that coastline has been prepared over decades with a deliberateness that I think deserves genuine respect as an act of strategic engineering, even from someone who spent his career on the other side of that equation. Three islands, Larak, Kishim, and Abu Musa, sit directly astride the international shipping lanes. Larak positions fast attack boats within minutes of any vessel transiting the channel. IRGC boats staged there can reach a passing cargo ship before the ship's crew has time to call anyone. Keshm, the largest island in the Gulf, serves as the primary military hub. Its mountainous interior hides a labyrinth of underground bunkers and mobile anti-ship missile launchers. The most recent confirmed intelligence indicates that more than 60% of the IRGC's fast attack craft survived American strikes specifically because of these underground coastal facilities. Tunnels bored hundreds of meters into coastal rock, housing rows of fast attack boats ready for rapid deployment, shielded from satellite surveillance and impervious to most aerial strikes. Abu Musa, further south, functions as an early warning center, extending Iran's awareness bubble deep into the Gulf. Radar systems there track incoming vessels long before they reach the choke point. The Americans used 5,000-pound bunker-busting bombs against some of these hardened coastal sites. These are weapons capable of penetrating 160 feet of earth or 20 feet of solid reinforced concrete before detonating. And still, more than 60% of the fast attack fleet survived. Let that number settle. After the most sustained American bombing campaign in decades, after the destruction of 159 conventional warships, after strikes with some of the most powerful non-nuclear munitions in the American arsenal against hardened coastal positions, more than 60% of the Mosquito fleet is still operational, still in its tunnels, still ready. Now let me walk you through why this specific force creates a tactical problem that America's Navy, for all its extraordinary capability, has not solved. And I want to be precise about this because I am not making a partisan argument. I am making a technical one that I believe the American public has a right to hear clearly. The Strait of Hormuz, at its narrowest point, is approximately 21 nautical miles wide. The actual shipping lanes within it, the channels that commercial vessels must physically use, are roughly 2 miles wide in each direction. 2 miles. That is the corridor through which 20% of the world's oil and 25% of the world's liquefied natural gas must pass. There is no alternative route for the Gulf's energy. The geography is not negotiable, and along Iran's side of that corridor runs a mountainous coastline riddled with the tunnel complexes and coastal launch sites I just described, from which a fast attack boat can emerge and close on a commercial vessel in the channel in under 3 minutes. 3 minutes. I want you to think about what that means for a defensive system. When a fast attack boat emerges from a coastal position and accelerates toward a commercial vessel at 90 kilometers per hour, the time available between detection and impact is not measured in the tens of minutes that allow a commander to assess, decide, communicate, and engage. It is measured in the kind of seconds that compress decision-making past what any system, human or automated, was designed to handle gracefully. The Aegis combat system on an American destroyer is the most sophisticated naval air defense architecture ever built. I have enormous professional respect for what that system does and for the sailors who operate it under genuine stress. It is capable of tracking ballistic missiles traveling at hypersonic speeds across hundreds of kilometers and engaging them with extraordinary precision, but it was designed for that threat. What it was not designed for, and what no naval system has yet satisfactorily solved, is the problem of distinguishing between dozens of fast-moving small boats in a radar-cluttered coastal environment where surface return from the water itself, background terrain scatter from the mountainous Iranian coastline, and the sheer density of simultaneous contacts overwhelm the sensor picture faster than the discrimination algorithms can process it. In a confined choke point, with swarms operating at high density from multiple angles, defenders are forced into a situation where expending high-cost defensive munitions against low-cost attacking craft becomes the only available option, And that exchange ratio, expensive American ordnance against cheap Iranian boats, is not one that favors the side with the larger budget when the side with the smaller budget has thousands of the cheap asset and is willing to lose them. Here is the number that I think reframes this entire naval confrontation more clearly than any battle map. A fast attack boat capable of carrying a crew of 3, armed with a guided missile and a machine gun, costs somewhere between $200,000 and $500,000. America has been expending naval gunfire, helicopter assets, destroyer operational time. The combined daily operating cost of a single Arleigh Burke-class destroyer at sea exceeds $500,000 to track, respond to, and engage vessels that cost less than a house in most American cities. Iran has thousands of them. The economics of this confrontation do not require Iran to win any individual engagement. They only require Iran to keep showing up, because every day the Mosquito fleet shows up in the Strait, the economic consequences continue to accumulate for the global economy and for the American political system. And now I want to tell you about the thing that has happened in the last several weeks that nobody in the official briefings will acknowledge publicly, but that represents one of the most audacious assertions of sovereign authority I have seen in 40 years of watching international conflict. Iran has turned the Strait of Hormuz into a toll booth. This is not a metaphor, and it is not an exaggeration. Starting in mid-March 2026, the IRGC established a formal system requiring commercial vessels seeking passage through the strait to submit to a vetting process. Ship operators contact an IRGC-linked intermediary and provide full vessel documentation, ownership records, flag registration, cargo manifests, destination ports, crew list, automated identification system tracking data. This package is forwarded to the IRGC Navy's Hormuzgan Provincial Command for what can only be described as a background check, screening for any links to the United States, Israel, or nations Iran considers enemies. Iran applies a 5-tier nationality ranking to every vessel. Ships from friendly nations receive favorable terms. Ships from hostile nations are denied transit entirely. If a vessel passes the screening, negotiations over the toll begin. For oil tankers, the base rate starts at approximately $1 per barrel of cargo. A very large crude carrier, a VLCC, typically carries around 2 million barrels. That means the starting price for one transit of one tanker is approximately $2 million. The payment must be made in Chinese yuan, routed outside the American-controlled SWIFT financial system, or in cryptocurrency, specifically stablecoins, and in some cases Bitcoin. Once payment clears, the IRGC issues a secret permit code and route instructions directing the vessel through a specific corridor near Larik Island. The ship broadcasts that code on VHF radio as it approaches. An IRGC patrol boat comes alongside and escorts it through Iranian territorial waters. Iran's parliament formally codified this system into law on March 30th and 31st in what it called the Strait of Hormuz Management Plan. Confirmed payments in Chinese yuan have already been transferred to Iran's central bank. As of yesterday, Iran's parliament deputy speaker confirmed publicly that the first toll revenues have been collected. The system is not theoretical. It is operational. It is generating revenue. And at current estimates, if even a fraction of normal traffic were to resume under this system, it could generate between $600 million and $800 million per month for the Iranian state. Let me tell you what this means strategically, because I think it is the most significant development of this entire maritime confrontation, and it is being dramatically underreported. For the last 8 weeks, the American narrative has been built around economic pressure. The blockade is costing Iran $500 million a day. The closure of the strait is suffocating the Iranian economy. Maximum pressure will force Iran to negotiate. That narrative assumes Iran is on the losing end of the economic equation in the strait. The toll system reveals that Iran has been thinking about this differently. Iran is not simply closing the strait. Iran is controlling the strait. And a country that controls access to a waterway can charge for that access. The IRGC is not just a military force enforcing a blockade. It has made itself the maritime authority of the world's most important energy choke point, collecting fees in a currency designed to bypass American financial power, depositing them into Iran's central bank, and daring the United States to stop it without reopening the very war it just agreed to pause. And this is where the operational picture and the strategic picture converge in a way that I think most commentators are missing entirely. The Mosquito fleet is not just a military instrument, it is the enforcement mechanism of the toll booth. Every time an IRGC fast attack boat fires on a vessel that tried to transit without paying, the way the Epaminondas was fired on with rocket-propelled grenades on April 22nd, it sends a message to every shipping company in the world. The message is simple. You either pay Iran for passage or your vessel gets damaged and your crew gets detained. And paying Iran means paying in yuan, paying outside SWIFT, paying an organization designated by the United States as a foreign terrorist organization, paying in a way that the American Treasury cannot intercept and American sanctions cannot easily block. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said at a G7 meeting last month that the United States would not accept a post-war scenario in which Iran can make money off the strait. That position has already been overtaken by events. Iran is making money off the strait right now, today, under the ceasefire. The first revenues have been confirmed deposited. The parliament has passed the law formalizing the system, and the Mosquito fleet is enforcing it with rocket-propelled grenades and ship seizures while American carrier strike groups operate from the Gulf of Oman, outside the range where they can respond effectively to small boat threats in a 2-mile channel. Now, I want to address something directly because I believe intellectual honesty requires it. America has known about the Mosquito fleet problem for 30 years. In 2015, a vessel specifically purpose-built for confined water small boat threat environments was tested in exercises simulating fast attack swarms and struggled. The tests were acknowledged but not resolved. In 2020, the administration at the time ordered the military to practice engaging Iranian gunboats with attack helicopters and gunship aircraft in the Gulf. Those exercises happened. The problem was not solved. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the most expensive warship ever constructed at $13.3 billion, was put through classified self-defense testing in 2022, specifically against what the Navy's documentation described as high-speed maneuvering surface targets. The results of those tests were never released publicly. The Ford is now in the Red Sea on a record-breaking deployment exceeding 300 consecutive days and not operating inside the Strait of Hormuz. The Navy Secretary has opened a formal review of the entire Ford-class program, and the Navy's own budget documents have stopped listing Ford-class carriers by class name among planned future purchases. The most expensive naval platform in the history of warfare is being reviewed for possible cancellation, while small Iranian boats collect transit fees from cargo ships in a waterway the president says America totally controls. I am going to tell you something that I thought carefully about before saying, because I understand the weight of it coming from someone with my background. The Trump administration, according to reporting this week, is now developing new military plans focused specifically on what is being called dynamic targeting of Iran's Mosquito fleet assets, the fast attack boats, the mine-laying vessels, the coastal asymmetric capabilities. This would represent a significant escalation if the ceasefire collapses. And I want to be precise about what dynamic targeting of dispersed small boat assets in a confined coastal geography actually means in practice. It means American aircraft hunting individual fast attack boats along an Iranian coastline riddled with tunnels and launch sites in an environment where those boats disperse, conceal, and reemerge faster than a targeting cycle can eliminate them. It means expending precision munitions against assets that cost a fraction of those munitions to replace. The military planners designing these options are professionals, and they are doing their jobs. But the strategic arithmetic of the problem they are being asked to solve has not changed because there is a new targeting plan. The Mosquito fleet's resilience comes from its dispersion, its concealment, its low cost, and its numbers. None of those properties are addressable by a bombing campaign. They are properties of a doctrine that was specifically designed to be bomb resistant. Here is the conclusion I want to leave you with, and I want you to hear it as someone who spent his career inside this system, who believes in the men and women who serve in it, and who is saying this not to score political points, but because I think it is true, and I think truth matters. The Mosquito Fleet Doctrine is not a clever tactical invention. It is a 40-year strategic answer to a very specific question. The question is, how does a country with limited resources deny a vastly superior military power the ability to control a waterway that runs through your territorial waters? Iran's answer was not to try to match that superior power conventionally. Iran's answer was to make conventional superiority irrelevant in that specific geography by deploying a force that cannot be permanently destroyed, that costs almost nothing to sustain, that operates in conditions where the superior power's advantages compress to near zero, and that can enforce access control through the credible threat of damage to any vessel that refuses to comply. The American military did not fail in this conflict. The systems performed, the sailors and airmen executed. The conventional Iranian military was destroyed on a timeline that would have been considered extraordinary in any previous conflict. But Iran was not betting on its conventional military. Iran was betting on its mosquito fleet and on its tunnels and on its geography and on the economic mathematics of attrition that favor a country selling access to a choke point over a country spending $10 million interceptors to stop $20,000 boats. Trump ordered his Navy to shoot and kill any boat laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, Iran confirmed that the first toll revenues from the strait have been deposited into its central bank. One of those two things tells you who actually controls the strait right now, and it is not the side that had to issue the order. I am Lawrence Wilkerson. Think carefully about what your government is telling you. Think even more carefully about what the other side is actually doing, and I will see you in the next one.